Hello, everyone. My name is Mithave, and I'm going to be doing a quick little training on how to be an effective president and vice president. So we'll go ahead and jump right in. All right, before I go ahead and start, I do want to say one thing. I'm going to be using the term president a lot throughout this presentation. However, this is also applicable to the position of vice president, as the vice president should be serving as the president's right-hand man. So just please keep that in mind throughout. And there are some specific duties related to the vice president that we will get into throughout the training. So the first thing that you'd want to do when you have been placed in the position is take a quick look at the governing documents. And in those governing documents, there are three levels. You have the one that's going to be the most applicable to you, the club, something that's a little bit less specific, the district, and then the broadest of them all, international. You want to make sure that whatever decision it is that you make throughout is going to adhere to all three of these bylaws. Otherwise, you will be going against what your club has set and what CKI International has set. So International is not necessarily going to be too limiting in what they do say. However, they are going to keep up the standard of what a CKI club should be like. And I like to think that the district level is also going to be very similar in that. The club level is going to be the one that you're going to want to spend the most attention to, because that is the one that's going to dictate how you run your club specifically. The next thing you want to do is focus on your committee chairs. So what are the steps to getting committee chairs? The first thing you want to do is identify the needs of the club, right? The point of a committee chair is to help in areas that are not necessarily defined by all of the officers, such as president all the way down to editor. First thing you want to do is write the directives. What is it that you want these committee chairs to specifically focus on throughout the year? You're not going to get people that are going to apply for these things unless you tell them what it is that you want them to accomplish. The next step would be obviously to appoint the chairs. This can be done by you, or more preferably, you want to probably get your entire board together and do this at a board meeting, because the more people that are actively thinking about the pros and cons of each applicant is going to result in the best pick. And lastly, you want to make sure that you're maintaining communication with these chairs throughout the year. As I said before, the committee chairs are an integral part of your club, and they're going to make a huge difference in the success of it, because there are a lot of aspects such as service, Kiwanis family relations, that you're not going to necessarily have the time to focus on throughout the year, because you're going to be holding arguably the most position in, or the most important position in the club. And right here, you'll see a little bullet point I have, could delegate to the vice president. And the reason I have that there is because the vice president is generally the one that is outlined as being in charge of the committee chairs. And because there aren't too many responsibilities given to the vice president, I think this is an appropriate choice. Like I said, the committee chairs are important, and the vice president should be able to spend a lot of time behind these positions if you want them to be successful throughout the year. So what kind of committee chairs should my club have? So I mentioned a couple: service, Kiwanis family relations, and here are a couple of other examples of committee chairs that you can have. So service is one of the biggest ones. A big aspect of our organization is obviously service. It is one of our tenants, and finding service projects throughout the year isn't necessarily the most easy task, which is why getting a service chair is going to help with that. Membership development, of course, you want to make sure that you're retaining the members that you do attract, whether that be through tabling or online recruiting events. You want to keep them, right? And a membership development chair is going to determine the best way to do that. Fundraising, a club needs money to operate, simply said. And if you want to throw socials for your club that involve money, maybe buy some food for meetings, comp decon costs or LTC costs, this is the best way to go about it. Having a person that is dedicated to finding funds for your club. I touched up a little bit about socials. Fellowship is another tenet of our organization, and making sure that members of the club have the opportunity to talk with one another, get to know each other, and hopefully create lifelong friendships is something that can be done through these events. And then last year, I have membership recruitment. And just as a heads up, these are not in any order of significance. It's just the way that I listed them. But membership recruitment is also one that you want to have, because, we all like CKI and we want to make sure that we're giving everyone the opportunity to join us. And if people don't know about it, then how are we going to do that? A membership recruitment chair would be the best person to find out ways to advertise our club and get people to join. So once you have appointed your committee chairs, you figured out the basic operations of your clubs via the bylaws. Next thing you want to do is set up your goals. And the reason why goals are important is because they are going to give you direction for the upcoming year. You want to make sure that you're not using your time in office incorrectly or just kind of sitting there for the entire year. These goals should be both quantitative and qualitative. And what I mean by quantitative, obviously, how many service hours do you want to achieve that year? How many people do you want to send to decon? How many socials do you want to have? Stuff like that, something that has a number attached to it. It's always good to set a goal for that, hopefully a higher one, just so you challenge yourself a little bit. And then, of course, you have qualitative goals. So these could be you could kind of get feedback from members. So how was our last meeting? And if the goal is to have good meetings, then maybe that would be a way to figure that out via surveys. Determine a plan of attack. So you've identified your goals, what it is you want to accomplish. How are you going to accomplish them? One way that you could go about doing that is creating a membership growth plan. If you need help with creating a membership growth plan, I highly suggest you reach out to our membership development and education chair, and she'd be more than happy to help you get that done. But this is also something that can easily be done with your members. I wouldn't, excuse me, not members, your officers, because you want to make sure that you're not doing this alone and that everyone is playing an active role in accomplishing these goals. Relay these goals to your members. It's important that every person in the club know what it is that your club is striving to do, right? And the more that you keep them in the loop, the more they'll be able to help you. The president, while an important person, is only one person at the end of the day and is going to be heavily reliant on everybody else to accomplish the goals. And list all members in accomplishing those goals. So kind of touches up a little bit more about what I just said. Your members are going to be the ones that are going to go to these service events, create hours. They're going to be the ones planning these socials. I hope that you're not the person that's doing all of that, because you will eventually to burnout, but we'll talk a little bit more about that. And then lastly, review your goals throughout the year. Things will change throughout the year. You might think of something a little bit differently. Something might happen. For example, COVID-19 is something that we're dealing with a lot this year, and that has affected the goals that I have set for the district. And while they might not necessarily be realistic now, I can still take a look at the goals that we have set and determine how we can move forward with them. And that is definitely something that you're allowed to do with your goals as well. It's okay to change your goals throughout the year. So board meetings. So why are board meetings important? Board meetings are meetings that are held only with the officers and preferably the committee chairs as well. And the point of them is so that everyone kind of knows what everyone else is doing, right? You guys are working as a team, and the president can't possibly do everything. And that's why, but he or she also needs to know what it is happening, right? And that's why a board meeting is going to be helpful in that it's the best way for you to catch up with what everyone is doing. So here are just the parts of a board meeting that you can have: the call to order, a roll call, updates on what everyone is doing, the CKI pledge, and then the adjournment. So I would argue that four of the five of these, call to order, roll call, the CKI pledge, and adjournment, those are a little optional. Those are very traditional meeting types in CKI, and quite frankly, chances are your officers aren't going to want to stay there the entire time and go through all that every time, and that's completely fine. The main purpose of these board meetings is to get information across, and updates is definitely the thing you want to focus on. So I highly recommend that you just have all of your officers and committee chair members go around and talk about what it is that they've been working on since, and then perhaps you guys could even discuss how you can move forward with everything that was just said. General board meetings. So this is going to be the meeting that you hold with everyone, right? These are going to be the meetings where you invite all of your members to, where you present all the information, And it is admittedly a lot of work. And if you have already started planning these, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And that's why you want to make sure that you're taking a couple of steps beforehand and ensuring that whatever it is that you do doesn't fall apart in the middle of a meeting. So determine the space. That's the first step. Where are you going to hold your board meeting? Some schools have a consistent place where they keep their board meetings. And if that's the case, then awesome. Keep doing that. It's really important that you have board meetings in the same place throughout the year so people know exactly where to go. If you are having them online, which I'm sure many clubs are this year, then make sure that Zoom links are available and that people know exactly that they know that it's going to be online and they aren't looking for a room somewhere, especially for some of the newer members that may not be too familiar with everything going on. Determine the purpose and make an agenda. You want to make sure that when you're having this meeting, you're not just inviting people without a purpose, right? And it could be a simple purpose. Maybe the purpose is to update people on whatever events are coming up. It can be simple. Just make sure that you know what it is that you're trying to accomplish with that meeting. And this agenda should be sent out to all members so that they know whether or not they need to come. Make a presentation. I think that this isn't too optional in that I kind of go back and forth on whether or not a presentation is required. And I think I'm at the point where a presentation is helpful in that there are people that aren't going to necessarily be listening the entire time. You know, it's the reality of the situation, especially with an online format. And I think that having a presentation for someone to at least look at will give them an idea of what is coming up, even if they're not listening. And yeah, send members the agenda. People need to know what is happening. And if they don't know, then chances are they're not going to be interested in coming. And of course, be confident. You want to make sure that you're exuding your best self when you're at these meetings because you're in a position of leadership and you're trying to get these people to hone their leadership skills as well. And confidence is going to give other people the confidence to keep going. Parts of a general board meeting. So, this is just an example, right? You don't necessarily have to follow this recipe throughout the entire year. And I'm going to show you later on what are some different ideas that you could implement throughout your club. But these are some of the more common aspects that I do recommend. So the first one would be a recap of what has happened. So maybe calling on a couple of members that may have attended a service project that you went to the prior weekend and maybe talking about that might encourage some people to go to the next one. Some type of engaging activity. It could be an icebreaker, it could be anything. Just make sure that people aren't going to the same boring meeting time and time again where they come in, they listen to you talk about upcoming events, and then they go home. People are going to get bored of that and not going to be too interested in come, and we'll probably just end up looking at meeting minutes that are sent out by the secretary. Updates on events. So this is probably the main reason why you would hold a general board meeting. So talk about upcoming events, you know, advertise any service projects, socials, and fundraisers that are coming up. That would be the perfect opportunity to do so because everyone is in the same spot. And a service project, you know, service is one of our tenants and you want to make sure that you're giving the club the opportunity to participate in that as much as possible, and having everyone again congregated in the same space at once is an easy way to get some easy hours for everyone and make an impact in the community, of course. And then lastly is social. I know many clubs that have socials at the end of their meetings just to, you know, really drive home that fellowship aspect of the organization. And that's something that you can definitely do as well for those that are interested. So, how can you make your meetings interesting? So, the first way that I can think of is to meet up at unique places, right? This is obviously post COVID. Please don't meet up in person unless you know that you can do it safely. But you know, having like getting boba and having a meeting there, going to a local park and maybe doing some type of picnic. These are all great ideas and ways to get members interested in something a little bit different. One thing I recommend is to create a monthly schedule where you take the individual weeks of the month and figure out some type of something unique with each one. So for week one, it could be a traditional meeting where you meet up in a room, you go over, you know, the recap, you have your update. notes for your future events. And then week 2 can be a little bit more interesting where you watch a movie at the end of the meeting, and week 3 could be a service project, etc. I do recommend that you keep these consistent, however, just so members know exactly what they can expect throughout the year. Recognize members and give prizes. This is a big one. So this year you should have received recruitment kits that do have stickers and a couple of other knickknacks that can be handed out as prizes throughout the year for those that do go above and beyond. And recognizing members is a great way to keep members more interested. Um, I can say for sure that when I was in Key Club in the Kiwanis family a long time ago, if I didn't get like, I guess the thumbs up that I got from all of my officers then, I probably wouldn't have gotten this far. They gave me the encouragement and, I don't know, made me feel a little bit better about myself. And that really helped. Invite guests, so local politicians, school officials, district board members, Kiwanians, etc. There's a plethora of options for you to explore in this aspect, and each one of them will be able to make your meetings a little bit more interesting. Local politicians are great. A lot of the times they're going to be excellent leaders that are well spoken and can give advice on anything that you ask them to. Really, I will say that you want to make sure that um, politicians aren't campaigning for anything, as we're not allowed to do that. But I'm sure you guys will be safe with that. School officials, we all any if you have a club meeting, everyone's going to be going to the same school, and they could talk a little bit about what it is that they're focusing on throughout that year. District board members are a great option as well. They can come in and talk about whatever it is that they do, create interest in the position, and then maybe even help out wherever needed. Kiwanians, of course, are an excellent choice as they love interacting with their SLP members and also helping out wherever available. So, service project. Is it the president's job to find the service project? I really hope that you're thinking, no, of course not, because it's true. I think this is one of the biggest misconceptions about the organization, and it is one that I like to drive home that it is the members' responsibility to find service projects that they're interested in. That's the whole point of the organization to me, in my eyes. CKI serves as kind of an outlet for members to be able to get a lot of people working on something that someone is passionate for. And I don't think that it's appropriate for the president to be the only person that's working on finding these service projects. Communication. This is probably the biggest thing that I would ask you to focus on throughout the year, because I think it does lead to the most successful clubs. So I have a little quote here that I really like. Communication works for those who work at it. And it is one of my favorite quotes about communication, probably because it's one of the few that I know, but still one of my favorites nonetheless. And I highly recommend that you keep in constant contact with your officers, your committee chairs, and even club members whenever feasible. It is president and vice president's one of those positions that people see as not very accessible due to there only being one of each. And I like to tear down that misconception as soon as possible, because we want to inspire everyone to run for these positions, because they're ultimately what's going to allow these people to hone their leadership abilities and serve their communities when we're out of college. So, who must you communicate with and how often? So, this is a big one. Board members are going to be the people that you probably communicate with most on, you know, perhaps even a day-to-day basis. Some people you'll want to communicate day to day, some people maybe a week, but I wouldn't recommend going beyond that. And even if there's nothing to talk about, just a little checkup doesn't hurt. Same thing goes with committee chairs. I would put them in the same boat. You guys are all working on the goals and have a direct stake in it. Members, again, this can be done very easily through your meetings or even your service projects and socials where you have access to them. You're going to get really comfortable working with your board members and committee chairs, and it's really easy to stick with them at these events. But making sure that you go to a member and make them feel a little bit special will definitely help them climb up and inspire them to run for higher office. Lieutenant governors are an excellent resource for you guys. So the district works hard in creating resources, and the lieutenant governor is the perfect liaison in explaining what those resources are, and he or she will be able to update you on everything that the district is doing. And of course, district officers. lieutenant governor system has been around for a really long time in Florida, and I think we've built up that misconception that members or board members of a club aren't allowed to directly go to a district officer, and I don't like that at all. I welcome any and all members of the Florida district to email me personally, and all other district board members have been instructed to help any member in the district if they are like if people reach out to them, and I highly recommend that you use them as they are resources that you've put into office to help you. So the best form of correspondence, there is obviously no correct answer in this. You're definitely going to want to figure out what form works the best for your club. Every club is going to be different. Some clubs prefer to use GroupMe to communicate. Some clubs prefer to use Facebook. Slack is a great option. It's what the district board uses. You just have to figure out what works for your club and what your members are willing to do or willing to use, and be present. So support your club in its endeavors. I've said this time and time again, president, vice president are positions where you're going to be spending a lot of time working on more of the logistics of the club, working towards your goals, planning events, making sure that you guys have enough money to plan the next social, stuff like that, things that the regular members don't necessarily have to worry about. And with all that responsibility, on top of maybe having a job or going to school, you're going to have not too much time to go to some events like service events. And you want to make sure that you're leaving out some time to do that, because talking to regular members at these types of events will, one, tell them that you care and that you're actually there to help them, and that will of course lead them to reach out to you more. And another thing is that it will lead them to run for higher office and help them, because our goal is to hone the leadership abilities of all members, not just those already in office. So here are ways to, again, support their members. So going to service projects, going to socials, and talking to those that you don't necessarily talk to often, fundraisers, even Kiwanis family events. Having close relationship with key clubbers and Kiwanians is really going to help drive your club, and put it in a state from being good to great. And district events, of course. The district puts on 2 big events throughout the year and a couple of other um, DLSSPs, and going to these events are a great way to get to know other club presidents throughout the district and bounce ideas back and forth, and again, just help propel your clubs. So forge relationships. This is the fellowship aspect I was alluding to a little bit earlier. Personally, if you know me, then you know I'm all about business. It was my whole spiel at Decon when I was running. However, I think now I've come to realize that the fellowship aspect is something that we might have, or me personally might have taken for granted a little bit now that we're stuck in our rooms and aren't allowed to go out, and which is why I think that they are now more important than ever. So board members and committee chairs, these are the people you're going to be interacting with the most often, and if you end up getting along with them, I have no doubt that the work that you guys will be able to accomplish will be significantly better than, a group of you that don't actually get along or aren't friends. Reach out to those that are struggling. One thing that is really easy, I found, is to communicate with those that respond to you, the quickest. And while it may be easier to talk to them, you want to make sure that you're giving the appropriate amount of attention to those that might be struggling a little bit. If your treasurer is having a test, you want to know about that so you know to support them and maybe stay out of their hair a little bit until that gets done. Empower the leaders in your club and eventually encourage them to run for higher office. You're not going to be president forever, and you want to make sure that someone is willing to take up that spot after you are done. And best way to do that is to show how much you can accomplish and how helpful the position can be for your club. Members, again, it is really important to know the members of your club, because without the members, we would not be able to accomplish all that we are able to. And if officers aren't talking to the members of their clubs, then members probably aren't going to be interested and will find a service organization in which they get the support that they want or need. Encourage members to come to events. So this can be done through club meetings, of course, and outline the benefits of running for a position. The reason why I drive this home so hard is because I'd say the Florida district is kind of in a state where it really needs to find a way to encourage members to run for higher office, as I've personally noticed that there are a lot of clubs and even district positions that are left with vacancies, and we definitely don't want that because that is the sign of a dying organization, and we want to make sure that we stay alive as long as possible to help our communities as long as possible. The Kiwanis family, I mentioned this a little bit earlier. They're a great resource to go to um, for not only service projects, but also bouncing ideas back and forth. Key Clubbers are a great group. Invite them to your service projects and socials. And of course, ask to be a part of their events. You know, it's a two-way street. You don't want to be the person that's always asking to go to things. Make sure that you're providing them with the service opportunities and of course the fellowship aspect. A lot of key clubbers are really interested in what it's like to be a college student. It's the perfect opportunity to get them interested, and the more receptive you are towards their ideas, the higher chance they may be interested in joining CKI once they end up going to college. Invite your Kiwanis advisor to your meetings. Kiwanis advisors have a huge stake in the success of your club because chances are they're the ones that are doing a lot of they're thinking about what it is that you guys are doing, and having them come and support your clubs is ultimately going to benefit your club. And attend the meetings of all Kiwanis clubs. I say all with like a little bit of italics right there, and the reason for that is because you don't want to go to only your sponsoring Kiwanis club. There are many Kiwanis clubs around you, and each and every single one of them would love to interact with you all because Kiwanians love supporting their SLP members and would love to invite you to even be a part of their program. Um, I have to say that free food is probably one of the best parts of going to these meetings. They will definitely feed you. And of course, it makes it a lot easier to ask for financial help when you want to pay for your club dues and send people to decon. So elections. Unfortunately, we can't be in our positions forever, and we do have to find a successor. So here's a quick rundown of how to go about it. This isn't going to be too in depth, and it will vary from club to club. However, I will say that if you have any questions, of course, you're more than welcome to reach out. So the first steps in planning an election is, again, this is something you want to be doing throughout the year. First is to promote the officer positions throughout the year. And the best way to do this is to make sure that your officers are, I guess, how do I say this, visible to everyone. You want to make sure, excuse me, they're not in the background only doing club work. They're going to service projects, they're going to socials, they're talking to people, they're telling people what it is they do and what they're learning from it. That's the best way to get people interested in positions instead of going up to them maybe a week or so before applications are due and convincing them to run. So again, make sure you're familiar with your club bylaws. The reason why I can't be too specific with these elections is that they are going to vary from club to club. However, we can always figure that out on a case by case basis if you reach out to me. Notify the members of the date of the elections at least 4 weeks in advance because you do want to give people an opportunity to determine whether or not they want to run and can handle it. Ensure that all candidates are fully aware of the guidelines. There are a lot of guidelines that come with Kiwanis family elections. Some of the most prominent rules being no campaigning, and making sure that you're not speaking down on other candidates that may be running, stuff like that. While they may seem obvious, it has happened in the past, and just verbalizing them at a meeting or placing them in some type of form is the best way to make sure that everyone is aware. And then, of course, make sure that you have all the ballots ready on the day of the election. So, the day of the elections, again, make sure you have all the ballots with you. It'll be a little difficult to run an election without them. Ensure everyone is familiar with the proceedings. Remember that not everyone is going to be familiar with what it is, that's happening, whether or not they're allowed to talk, ask questions, etc. This is information that should be made actually aware well before, but a quick reminder on the day of the election can't hurt anyone. After the election, console those not elected. One of the things that I see happening a lot is that when someone who's really dedicated to the organization, is active and cares, loses an election, they tend to disappear. And it's one of the worst things in the world because I know that they would have still been able to accomplish a lot. So definitely read the person before you go up to them and determine if they're okay with talking, because some people might still be a little emotional, but make sure that you're reassuring them that they can still make a huge impact with their passion and actually make a difference in the community regardless of whatever position they may have lost for. And of course, the most important thing is help the new officers get the training that they need to operate. One thing that the Florida district is planning is a training to be held for all club officers sometime in either March or April, just so the new officers do get the training that they need well in advance of them actually being expected to really step into their roles, and that is something that we will be able to help with. However, at a club level, making like the president should be making sure that all of their boards, so like your board, is talking to their successors and making sure that they know what to do before something like that, like the district meeting, can happen. Um, District and international events. So there are multiple district events that happen throughout the year. The one that is happening this year is called the Personal and Professional Development Conference. This is in place of our leadership training conference due to everything being online this year. We figured it was a bit more appropriate to call it something different. Again, it is our fall event. It is completely free and virtual, and it is going to be entirely workshop based. LTC has a big focus on fellowship, and I did feel as though that would be really difficult to accomplish given the virtual aspect of it all. So instead, we elected to scrap that for now and, of course, focus on workshops that I truly think that you will be able to benefit from and, implement in your college time and also hopefully even after that. Please make sure that you're advertising this event to your clubs. The date is October 24th. And district convention. So this is arguably the most important event of the year. It is where you elect the new district board members. So everyone from governor all the way down to editor will be elected at this event, and you get to meet members of the district. That's one of the biggest benefits of this event. We are an international organization, and that is something that we say. So this is a great way to take advantage of the fact that we're an organization much bigger than the members that we see on a week to week basis at our own clubs. In addition to that, we get to vote on any changes that are made to the bylaws. Bylaws can be changed at this event. Sometimes there may be something in there that is preventing the district or clubs from accomplishing a lot more than they could, and this is the perfect time to change that. There are going to be workshops that are offered. They will range from professional development to just general information about CKI and what's happening on both the district and international level. And of course, we do ask that you advertise this event to your members, because the more people that are at this convention, the better, because again, they'll be able to meet people, they'll get a lot out of it, and they are CKI members and are eligible to attend. Let's take advantage of that. I say more information will be revealed in the near future, but one thing that I can tell you is that it will not be held in Orlando as it usually is. Instead, it will be held at Daytona Beach. And that is something that we are extremely excited about because it is the first time in a long time that we're going to be holding a decon that's not in Orlando. International convention. So, again, if the international level is something that you're really interested in, attending this event is a great way to get more information. Be recognized for all of your hard work. There are opportunities to apply for awards, and these awards are gorgeous. And if you know that you have done an excellent job, or you or any of your officers and members, there's a great place to go and apply for these awards and hopefully win them. Another thing is elect the new international board. So even though the international board may seem like something that's really far away from you, the decisions that they end up making heavily impact the way all clubs are ran throughout the world. And that is why it's really important to make sure that you're putting the right people in office to further benefit CKI in the way that you would think is best, and advertise the benefits when you are talking about international convention to your club members. So meeting people across the globe is probably the coolest aspect of it. Like I said, we are CKI, and I stands for international, and really selling that point is probably going to encourage members to attend. Again, attending workshops, I personally know for a fact that internationals workshops are excellent. They spend a lot of time working on them, and I think that you would greatly appreciate them and learn a lot from. And of course, you get to explore a new city. They are generally held in different cities. I know that we've had them in San Antonio, Chicago, Indianapolis, and this year I believe it is in Austin, Texas. So that is exciting. So this is, the conclusion of this training. There is a lot of information also available out there, but if you want to ask me, you're more than welcome to do so at this email address. Please feel free to reach out, and I'd be more than happy to answer any questions that you may have. All right, thank you.